Well, good evening, Brian, and welcome to the Lodge Hope of Karachi, our lockdown lecture series. This is Zoom meeting number 38, and I'm delighted on behalf of the Lodge to welcome you all along here this cold and blustery November evening. As usual, Brian, can I remind you of the Grand Lodge of Scotland guidelines that insist that we must have our videos kept on, that you've got a decipherable name in front of you, but if you do need to put your video off due to bandwidth problems, please just drop me a message in the chat. Can I also please encourage you all, for the sanity of our secretary, our hard-working secretary, because he loves taking a tile, please put your lodge and name and number and your name on the virtual tile within the Facebook pages. It gives something nobody to do through the day because he doesn't have any big boats to go and play on just now. So I appreciate that, Brian. As usual, this will be being recorded and will be live on our YouTube channel later on this evening. Brian, I'm delighted to bring to you today a brother from the Caribbean, brother Sheldon Taitt. There's a little bit of a backstory how Sheldon's come to us, and it was with a conversation with one of Lodge Hope's of Karachi's friends, Brother John Belton, who is a well-renowned Masonic scholar, presenter and author. And he was telling me about Sheldon and the work that he's been doing. And because of that introduction, Sheldon and I started communicating, and I'm delighted that he's agreed to come here this evening to give us a paper, a talk on the historical antecedents of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. A little bit of background about Sheldon. He's a past master of Lodge Caribbean Light, number 1391. He's currently their deputy master, and he's the district grand lecturer. So hopefully we'll be in for a treat this evening. He also has honorary district grand rank as district grand lecturer, and he's in a variety of other orders that many of us know: Royal Arch, Lodging Council, Cryptic Council, Sovereign Prince Rose Croix, Preceptory, put my teeth back in, and the Conclave. So without further ado, Brian, it gives me the greatest of pleasure to introduce Brother Sheldon Taitt.
Thank you and good evening, brethren. Gordon, I'm going to do a screen share now. Right.
That's perfect. Thank you, Sheldon.
So once again, good evening, brethren, from a warm and sunny Caribbean in Trinidad. And as Gordon said, I'm delighted to be here, and I'd like to thank both Gordon and John Belton for the opportunity to present to you. So the presentation this evening is the historical antecedents of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. And it's really my privilege and honor this evening to have the opportunity to share with you this essential part of the origin and history, detailing the prevailing circumstances and events that ultimately led to the formation of our district. Now, it was indeed a challenge to try and consolidate 201 years from 1757 to 1958 of rich and fascinating Masonic history into just a few pages for the purpose of this lecture. Nevertheless, I've endeavored to capture the most salient points for your digestion. So we start our journey, the 17th century. We're following the formation in the 18th century, sorry. We're following the formation of the Grand Lodge of Scotland in 1736. Scottish provinces were then set up globally. In the Western Hemisphere in 1757, that was the year that the province over all Scottish lodges in America and the West Indies was established. This province remained in place for 11 years until the first split occurred and two new provinces were born. The province of the southern part of North America, i.e. USA, in 1768, and the province of Leeward Caribbean Islands, based in the island of St. Kitts in 1769. Now, Lodge United Brothers, henceforth I will refer to as LUB afterwards, number 251, was already in operation in Trinidad for 18 years, from 1795 to 1813. And this particular lodge had already worked under two different constitutions. It worked for 3 years from 1795 to 1798 under the Grand Orient of France, and subsequent to that for 15 years from 1798 to 1813 under the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. And then on Monday, November 1st, 1813, Lodge United Brothers number 251 was chartered by the Grand Lodge of Scotland and thus became the first Scottish lodge in Trinidad. Now, just 9 years later, on November 26, 1822, LUB number 251 moved a motion to become a provincial Grand Lodge. This motion was passed unanimously by the lodge, but eventually it was unsuccessful. Then, on Monday, November 13th, in the year 1837, the province of the Leeward Caribbean Islands was renamed the province including the Caribbean, and the base was moved from the island of St. Kitts to the island of Grenada. And this 5 lodges under its purview, one from each of the following countries: Barbados, Grand Turk, Trinidad, Grenada, and St. Kitts. Now, the first and only provincial Grand Master of this province was Brother Dr. William Stevenson. And under this province, on Tuesday, July 1st, 1856, Lodge Eastern Star number 368 was erected and consecrated. And so Trinidad now had 2 Scottish lodges. Now, Lodge United Brothers, in addition to not readily accepting this new provincial Grand Lodge, including the Caribbean of 1837, they were not in favor of the formation of Lodge Eastern Star number 368, initially treating them as a dubious and irregular lodge. And in fact, only 3 members from LUB attended the erection ceremony. Now, in fact, prior to recognizing Lodge Eastern Star number 368, Lodge United Brothers 251 went even further by approving a motion that a special committee be appointed by the master to inquire into and to investigate all matters related to the formation of Lodge Eastern Star, and the resulting findings were to be sent to Grand Lodge before they would recognize Lodge Eastern Star. Now, brethren, you will note that in this discourse, Lodge United Brothers made a decision to communicate directly with Grand Lodge instead of following the established protocol, which was to communicate through the provincial Grand Lodge based in Grenada. Eventually, the report of the committee was submitted, it was adopted, and LUB number 251 finally recognized Lodge Eastern Star. When the provincial Grand Master for the province, including the Caribbean, Brother the Honorable Dr. W. Stevenson, passed away on March the 2nd of 1861, this effectively signaled the end of this province, which was based in Grenada. Lodge United Brothers then moved swiftly and flexed its muscles and ensured that Trinidad will never again be under the rule of a provincial Grand Lodge in Grenada or any other island. Thus, we now had the second split, resulting in the formation of the province of Trinidad in 1862 and the province of the West India Islands, including Tobago, in 1873. The province of Trinidad from 1862 to 1889 had 3 provincial Grand Masters, all of whom were past masters of Lodge United Brothers number 251. The first provincial Grand Master was Brother John Alexander Tench from 1862 to 1874. He was the master of Lodge United Brothers for 14 consecutive years until his resignation in April and appointment as provincial Grand Master in July of 1862. The other 2 provincial Grand Masters were Brother James MacDonald Reed from 1875 to 1881 and Brother Dr. Robert Knox from 1888 to 1889. I must, however, now make special mention of Brother Knox, who by far had the shortest tenure of the three provincial Grand Masters, that being just 1 year, from June 20th, 1888 to June 24th, 1889. The unfortunate or fortunate demise of Brother Nags, depending upon from which perspective you look at things, was as a result of his attempt to ban the consumption of alcohol at lodge meetings. During the 27-year period, the province of Trinidad existed from 1862 to 1889. Two additional Scottish lodges were erected and consecrated. Lodge Athole, number 438, on Saturday, the 5th of December, 1864 in San Fernando, and Lodge Roslin, number 596, on Tuesday, September 18th, 1877 in Port of Spain. Unfortunately, Lodge Athole became dormant in 1892. Now with the resignation of the provincial Grand Master, Brother Nags, on June 24th, 1889, the Provincial Grand Lodge of Trinidad effectively expired on this date. And we would have to wait 69 long years before the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago would be formed in 1958. Now, switching to the situation in Tobago. Freemasonry started in the island of Tobago on Friday, May 14th, 1869, with the erection and consecration of Lodge Scarborough, number 488, under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Because remember, brethren, in 1861, the province, including the Caribbean, ceased to exist. We can, however, point out a very interesting anomaly in that although the province of Trinidad had absolutely no jurisdiction over Tobago, the provincial Grand Master for Trinidad at that time, Brother J.A. Tench, was actually the one who gave the commission for Lodge Scarborough to operate. And in fact, for the next 4 years, from 1869 to 1873, Lodge Scarborough gave nominal submission to the Provincial Grand Lodge of Trinidad. This situation was regularized by Grand Lodge with the formation of the province of the West India Islands, including Tobago, in 1873. This new province comprised of 4 lodges, one each from the island of Grenada, St. Kitts, Barbados, and of course Tobago. With the Master of Lodge Scarborough, number 488, Brother the Honorable Joseph King Watley, who was the Chief Justice of Tobago, appointed as the first Provincial Grand Master. Now, Lodge Scarborough, number 488, and the Provincial Grand Lodge of the West India Islands were so intertwined that the demise of the lodge resulted in the consequent demise of the Provincial Grand Lodge. Thus, with the last known records of Lodge Scarborough, number 488, dated October 2nd, 1896, and with Grand Lodge officially recording the dormancy 10 years later in 1906, Grand Lodge eventually declared the Provincial Grand Lodge of the West India Islands defunct. Unfortunately, we can find no record of the actual date. But brethren, this occurrence showed an unfortunate trend that the dormancy of our 3 hereditary provincial Grand Lodges resulted directly from either the departure of its provincial Grand Master or the demise of the lodge in the country where the province was based. And the question has to be asked, are there any valuable lessons to be learned? Switching back to Trinidad and continuing on our timeline, with the year 1889 marking the end of the Provincial Grand Lodge of Trinidad, and for the next 34 years, that is up until 1923, we can find no evidence of attempts to either revive or resuscitate a Scottish Provincial Grand Lodge of or for Trinidad. However, during this same period, Lodge United Brothers number 251 apparently assumed the role of the self-constituted guardian of Masonic morality, legality, and regularity in Trinidad. And this was partly due to a rediscovery between 1896 and 1898 of the antiquity and primacy of the lodge, which had been previously forgotten. This inevitably led to an aristocratic attitude over the other Scottish lodges by Lodge United Brothers. Trinidad got its 4th Scottish lodge with the erection and consecration of Lodge ARIMA number 899 on Saturday, June 9th, 1900. Before we move to the year 1923 and the first attempt to form a provincial or district Grand Lodge, there are two incidents that must be highlighted where one lodge attempted to interfere in the business of other lodges. Now, these actions escalated the inter-lodge rivalry amongst the Scottish lodges and undoubtedly influenced the thoughts and resulting actions of some very key and powerful Masons, which thus negatively impacted our efforts towards unity and forming a district Grand Lodge. Now, the first incident occurred in 1919 and was related to an upcoming ballot at Lodge ARIMA number 899 for 3 candidates. The master of LUB, Brother Frederick Owen Webb, was a 30th degree, and other senior brethren had concerns as regards the eligibility of these candidates into the craft, and thus they sent a deputation of 4 brethren to Lodge ARIMA on the night of the ballot in order to oppose 2 of the 3 candidates, Mr. L.C. Hanez and Mr. F.E.M. Hossain. However, on the night, the brethren from Lodge ARIMA vigorously opposed the protests by the deputation from LUB as regards these 2 candidates, and both were subsequently initiated. The brethren of LUB viewed this to be a very serious matter and passed a resolution on the 1st of October, which was to be sent to Lodge ARIMA, expressing their displeasure at the incident, advising of the cessation of convocations and visitations, and that the unfriendly and unfraternal act of Lodge ARIMA would be recorded in the minutes. Then, 2 years after, on April 6, 1921, the master of Lodge ARIMA at that time, Brother W.E. Beckles, initiated a discussion with the master of Lodge United Brothers, Brother J.H. Clark. And after much back and forth between the same senior brethren from LUB, who had actually started and pursued the issue, amity between the 2 lodges was finally restored by the withdrawal of the October 1st, 1919 resolution, with full restoration of intervisitation achieved by June 7, 1922. Lodge ARIMA forgave Lodge United Brothers, but did they forget? Now, these actions by Lodge United Brothers caused great concern among the brethren from the other Scottish lodges due to the risk of domination by senior brethren from LUB if a provincial Grand Lodge were to be formed. The second incident, which also occurred in 1919 and was related to Lodge Alexandra, number 1044, amending the original charter of 1908. Once again, the master from Lodge United Brothers, Brother Frederick Owen Webb, 30th degree, and other senior brethren deemed that it was a Masonic irregularity to have a non-Scottish Mason head a new Scottish lodge, and that the matter should be presented to Grand Lodge. Again, these actions by the senior brethren from LUB were a cause of great concern amongst the brethren from the Scottish lodges in Trinidad, as some of these same senior brethren inevitably may have been selected as principal office bearers if any Scottish provincial Grand Lodge were to be formed. Despite this unfortunate setback, Lodge Alexandra 1044 was eventually erected and consecrated on Saturday, January 17th, 1920. They were the 5th Scottish lodge in Trinidad. Now, the wounds from these 2 incidents, no doubt, ran very, very deep and possibly lasted for decades after, where the younger Scottish lodges in Trinidad had a real and genuine fear of the domination by senior autocratic members of Lodge United Brothers number 251 if a provincial Grand Lodge were to be formed. The first attempt to form a provincial or district Grand Lodge was actually initiated by Grand Secretary in 1923, who at that time was probably overwhelmed by the volume of correspondence of charges and cross charges and counter charges coming across his desk from Trinidad. He communicated this to one Brother T.H. Cross from Lodge United Brothers, who was actually visiting Edinburgh at that time. And Brother Cross promised to raise the issue on his return to Trinidad. Subsequently, on March 7th in 1923, Lodge United Brothers passed a motion supporting the formation of a provincial Grand Lodge and another motion to communicate with the other Scottish lodges in order to obtain their opinion. Now, it is possible that Lodge United Brothers may have underestimated the impact of their actions in 1919, which were earlier outlined as both Lodge Eastern Star number 368 and Lodge ARIMA number 899 immediately rejected the idea of forming a provincial Grand Lodge for the Scottish lodges in Trinidad, and the matter was completely dropped as if it had never been raised. The second attempt to form a provincial or district Grand Lodge was initiated by Lodge Eastern Star number 368 on June 1st, 1934, when a notice of motion was given, in the best interests of Scottish Freemasonry, other lodges should be approached to consider forming a provincial Grand Lodge. Now, brethren, it's very important to note that present at this meeting of Lodge Eastern Star number 368 were two very senior brethren from Lodge United Brothers number 251, including Brother F.O. Webb, who was now a 33 degree. Then, in the following month, Lodge United Brothers, at their meeting in July, Brother J.A. Assing, as if totally and completely unaware of the motion moved in the previous month at Lodge Eastern Star, gave notice of a motion that Lodge United Brothers number 251 sponsor the formation of a district Grand Lodge in the interests of Scottish Freemasonry in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, what should be noted here is that the two very senior brethren from Lodge United Brothers, who were present at the June meeting of Lodge Eastern Star, where their notice of motion was given for the formation of a provincial Grand Lodge, were both present at the July meeting of Lodge United Brothers, but yet neither made any mention of it. In fact, they both remained completely silent on the matter. One can only guess whether the Lodge United Brothers' notice of a motion was mere coincidence or specifically planned. Whatever the truth, each of the 5 Scottish lodges duly appointed 3 representatives to discuss ways and means of forming a provincial Grand Lodge as requested by Lodge Eastern Star. However, this attempt also failed, and we can find no written records as to the specific reasons why. Between the second and third attempts to form a provincial Grand Lodge, there were 2 key events that occurred in Freemasonry in Trinidad. On June 27th, 1937, Masonry in Trinidad suffered a severe loss with the passing of Brother F.O. Webb, 33 degrees, who was a past master of Lodge United Brothers number 251. Now, Brother Webb at this time was one of the most influential Masons in Trinidad, and he was a key player in both 1919 incidents with Lodge Alexandra, number 1044, and Lodge ARIMA, number 899. In fact, he was the reigning master, and his passing substantially reduced the domination of Lodge United Brothers 251 over Masonry in Trinidad. In the following year, on Monday, the 20th of November, 1938, Lodge Caribbean Light, number 1391, was erected and consecrated, primarily through the efforts of Brother J.A. Assing, past master of Lodge United Brothers 251. And this increased the number of Scottish lodges in Trinidad from 5 to 6. The third attempt to form a provincial Grand Lodge occurred in June 1940, when Brother A.B. de Lima, master of Lodge United Brothers, wrote personal letters to certain masters and past masters, inviting them to a meeting at their temple, Mount Moriah, to discuss the possibility of forming a Scottish District Grand Lodge. Now, this ad hoc committee of masters and past masters actually met and passed 2 resolutions. First, that a District Grand Lodge be opened or revived as soon as possible in Trinidad and Tobago. And second, that this resolution be forwarded to each of the Scottish lodges in Trinidad for consideration. Lodge ARIMA number 899 immediately rejected the resolution, which actually should have ended the matter even if all the other lodges agreed. However, this ad hoc committee still continued to meet, and in 1941, both LUB and Lodge Eastern Star appointed 5 members each. At this juncture, Lodge ARIMA again wrote to the committee, but this time using very strong language, and I quote, "This lodge wishes to make it clear that it is totally opposed to the formation of a district Grand Lodge in the colony at the present time and under the present circumstances." Consequently, this third attempt petered out and eventually failed. Now, just prior to the 4th attempt, in January 1947, during a visit to Grand Lodge by Brother J.A. Waterman, who was a past master of Lodge Caribbean Light number 1391, and also of Royal Philanthropic Lodge number 405, he discussed with Grand Secretary the possibility of erecting a district Grand Lodge in Trinidad. However, from the ensuing discussion, it was agreed that appointing a district superintendent would be better. In December of the same year, 1947, Brother Waterman asked Grand Secretary to recommend to Grand Committee the appointment of a district superintendent over Trinidad. However, due to a change in Grand Secretary in the following year, this prevented further progress on this point. The 4th attempt to form a district Grand Lodge was then initiated by Lodge Caribbean Light 1391, and most probably, though not specifically stated, driven by Brother J.A. Assing, past master of Lodge Caribbean Light and LUB, and Brother J.A. Waterman, past master of Lodge Caribbean Light and Royal Philanthropic Lodge. Now, this in itself was a very risky move, as Lodge Caribbean Light was the youngest lodge under the Scottish jurisdiction. At this meeting in June, the lodge passed a resolution to initiate a move to explore the advisability of establishing a Scottish district Grand Lodge. However, the wording of this letter to the lodges could be described as somewhat elitist, favoring the older lodges over the newer lodges, as it invited from each lodge all Masons holding honorary Grand rank and only 2 brethren from each lodge not holding Grand rank. Additionally, the wording used in the letter essentially assumed that it was already a fait accompli that Trinidad should have a district Grand Lodge, and the meeting was merely for the purpose of rubber stamping. In September of 1949, the meeting with this proposal, the different lodge representatives proceeded, and Lodge ARIMA number 899 put forward that Brother L.C. Haney's past master should be the first district Grand Master. To this particular point, Brother J.A. Assing immediately said he was not in favor, and the meeting was postponed to an undefined future date. Now, brethren, if we go back very quickly to the 1999 incident between LUB 251 and Lodge ARIMA 899, Brother J.A. Assing, he was an active participant in this impasse, and in fact, Brother Assing was instrumental in drafting the 1919 resolution against Lodge ARIMA. Whilst Brother L.C. Hanez, he was actually one of the 2 candidates that was objected to. So although at this point, it was some 30 years onwards from the incident, it was evident that the memories and the emotions and bitterness were never forgotten. And in fact, they still prevailed. And this was probably the catalyst that resulted in the eventual failure of this 4th attempt. Now, regrettably, with the tensions already high between the lodges, there was further friction as the outcome of what was certainly assumed and perceived to be a locally initiated meeting was unfortunately reported to Grand Lodge. And Grand Secretary then wrote all the lodges in Trinidad asking for their reasons if they were not in favor of establishing a district Grand Lodge. The 5th attempt to form a district Grand Lodge was again initiated by Grand Lodge via letter from Grand Secretary to all Scottish lodges in December 1953. Now, though the records for some lodges were not available, we do know that Lodge Eastern Star rejected this proposal via a letter sent to Grand Secretary in February of 1954. And in January of 1955, Grand Secretary wrote to Lodge Eastern Star again, asking them for an update on their position. What Eastern Star then did is they tried to set up a conciliatory meeting with Lodge Caribbean Light number 1391 on June 17, 1955, to try and resolve certain outstanding issues emanating from the September 1949 meeting of the fourth attempt. However, this was unsuccessful since from Lodge Caribbean Light, only Brother J.A. Assing was present, and Brother J.A. Waterman, a key player in the fourth attempt of 1949, and an extremely influential Mason at that time, was absent. From this, it is my humble opinion that Lodge Eastern Star and maybe some of the other lodges probably felt that Brother Waterman might have played a key role that resulted in the communication from Grand Lodge as to why the lodges did not want to form a district Grand Lodge. The sixth attempt to form a district Grand Lodge appears to be solely due to the efforts of one Mason, Brother J.A. Waterman, who on September 7th, 1956, personally wrote to all lodges from his home, inviting them to send 2 representatives to explore the formation of a Scottish District Grand Lodge. Brother Waterman, 32-degree Mason, was able to do this since he was part of the triumvirate that controlled all the so-called higher degrees. The other 2 being Brother Dr. N.H. Brewster, who was a 33-degree Mason and a past master of Lodge Alexandra 1044, and Brother J. Assing, 30th degree, past master of Lodge LUB and Lodge. Now, Lodge Roslyn, Lodge Alexandra, and Lodge Caribbean Light all responded positively to Brother Waterman's invitation. We could find no records from Lodge United Brothers. Lodge Eastern Star initially appointed 2 representatives, but when this was referred to the General Committee, it apparently went no further. Lodge ARIMA 899 rejected the initiative, citing inopportune time, and declined to send anyone. Thus, once again, this was another failed attempt. Now, brethren, with 6 failed attempts over a 33-year span from 1923 to 1956, and with Grand Secretary probably overwhelmed with the sheer volume of complaints and issues emanating from Trinidad, Grand Lodge apparently decided that the Trinidad impasse could only be resolved by the application of force majeure. Thus, on December 20th, 1956, just a mere 3 months after the failed 6th attempt, Grand Committee resolved to recommend to Grand Lodge, and I quote, "It would be in the best interest of the craft in Trinidad that either a district superintendent be appointed for Trinidad or that a district Grand Lodge be formed." This was formally communicated by Grand Secretary to all Scottish lodges on Wednesday, February 13th, 1957, and requesting a reply from the lodges before May 15th, 1957. Now, brethren, it's very interesting to note the difference in tone and wording of the letters of correspondence from the same Grand Secretary to all Scottish lodges in 1957 for the 7th attempt, and previously between 1953 and 1955 during the failed 5th attempt. From the Grand Secretary's letter in 1953, and I quote, "It is now felt that the prevailing conditions will be conducive to forming a district Grand Lodge, and I should be grateful if you would submit this letter to an early meeting of your lodge and let me know whether you would be favorably disposed to the suggestion." Subsequent to this letter, there was further correspondence in 1955 from Grand Secretary to Lodge Eastern Star, and I quote again, "The majority of lodges in Trinidad are now quite definitely in favor of the formation of a district Grand Lodge, and it does seem a pity that matters should drag on when there's a real desire within Trinidad for such a project. I should be grateful, therefore, if you would let me know as soon as possible the present feeling of the members of your lodge." So, brethren, in the letter of 1953, we see Grand Secretary is actually making a suggestion. And then in the letter of 1955, we see Grand Secretary almost appealing for a compromising agreement. However, when we come now to his letter of 1957, in the 7th attempt, the tone and wording from Grand Secretary had completely changed. There was no suggestion and there was no appeal for agreement. A definitive decision had already been made by Grand Lodge to move forward with the reorganization of Scottish Freemasonry in Trinidad. And the lodges were now just simply issued an ultimatum to choose their preference for either a district superintendent or a district Grand Lodge. The Grand Lodge quarterly meeting held on Thursday, August 1st in 1957, it was unanimously agreed, and I quote, that a district Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago be erected. And this was communicated by Grand Secretary to all Scottish lodges on August 21st, 1957. Now, in order to avoid any delay by the lodges, 2 days later, on August 23rd, Grand Secretary wrote to all Scottish lodges with clear instructions and suggestions, asking them, in accordance with Law 114, to suggest the name of a brother for District Grand Master. This was to be sent directly to Grand Secretary, as Grand Lodge would have to make the appointment. The letter was clearly marked to be read in open lodge, and a reply was requested on or before October 15th. However, on Thursday, November 7th, at Grand Lodge's quarterly communication, Grand Committee did not recommend a candidate for the office of District Grand Master of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago, which would support the view that each lodge nominated one of their own members, and thus each candidate submitted had only one vote. Now, on November 10th, 1957, at the first meeting of the Scottish lodges held in Trinidad, the absolutely unexplainable happened when the elected chairman, Brother W.H.V. Dolly, past master of Lodge Roslin, number 596, said that the first order of business of this meeting was to recommend a suitable candidate for the office of District Grand Master for the proposed District Grand Lodge. This, of course, brethren, was in direct contradiction of the instructions from Grand Lodge, which were clearly detailed in their letters of August 21st and August 23rd. Lodge United Brothers, number 251, Lodge ARIMA, 899, Lodge Alexandra, 1044, and Lodge Caribbean Light, 3091, all indicated they had already sent their nominations, arrived at an open lodge to Grand Lodge, in accordance with the instructions from Grand Secretary, and thus declined to enter into any discussion on this item. After some other discussion, the meeting was subsequently adjourned with nothing useful accomplished. It was clear that each lodge nominated one of their own members to be the first District Grand Master. But what a powerful list it was of experienced, knowledgeable, influential, and respected Freemasons. And this slide shows the respective lodges and the respective nominations. Now, at the second meeting of all Scottish lodges held on December 2nd, 1957, and at the very onset, a new chairman, Brother V.C. Ramsaran, past master of Lodge United Brothers, was voted in at the behest of Brother J. Assing, 30th degree, past master of Lodge United Brothers and Lodge Caribbean Light. And incredulously though, the meeting again reverted to the point of appointing a new District Grand Master. In this situation, however, this time things went differently. Lodge Alexandra, 1044, nominated Brother Dr. N.H. Brewster, 33rd degree, and this nomination was supported by Lodge Caribbean Light, number 3091. Thus, this gave Brother Brewster 2 votes. Now, at a Lodge Eastern Star meeting, which was held in October 11th, prior to both of these meetings, Brother H.O.B. Wooding, who was the recommendation from Lodge Eastern Star, he declined his nomination. Continuing on in this second meeting, Brother J.A. Waterman, 32nd degree, and a past master of Lodge Caribbean Light, number 1391, and Royal Philanthropic, number 405, then gave a rousing lecture on the necessary qualifications of a District Grand Master, and ended with an expression of strong support for Brother Brewster. This electrified the atmosphere at the meeting, but it was soon dissipated by Brother Dolly, stating his willingness to decline his nomination. This was likewise soon followed by Brother Sinanan, and both men then declared their willingness to support the nomination of Brother Brewster, 33rd degree. Brethren, here we see the very strong influence of the triumvirate of the higher degrees at work. And so, finally, we saw the leaders walking the talk and openly practicing the virtues and tenets of Freemasonry by putting the welfare of the craft before self and their personal aspirations. In 1958, Tobago, which was previously under the now defunct province of the West India Islands, was formally detached from the province and included in the present District Grand Lodge. Thus, the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago was the first ever Scottish Masonic body over the combined islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Thus, brethren, it all came to pass at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, March 19, 1958, in the temple at Mount Moriah at Lodge United Brothers number 251, where Brother, the Right Honorable, the Earl of Eglinton and Winton, the most worshipful Grand Master Mason of the Grand Lodge of Scotland, who was the Grand Master Mason and in fact the first Grand Officer to visit Trinidad in 145 years of Scottish Freemasonry from 1813 to 1958, he opened a pro-tempore meeting of the Grand Lodge, and the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago was duly erected and consecrated. Grand Lodge was then closed, and the first meeting of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago was opened, and Brother Dr. N.H. Brewster was duly installed in the office of District Grand Master. The newly installed District Grand Master then nominated and installed his commissioned office bearers, after which he obligated and installed his elected office bearers. Now, what was for me both interesting and remarkable to note here at the finale is that despite the 6 previous failed attempts and all the prior inter-lodge and interpersonal rivalries that existed, 4 of the other 5 initial nominations for District Grand Master all had key positions in the district, as you can see on the slide. And 3 of those 4 went on to become District Grand Master, those being Brother H.O.B. Wooding, Brother W.H.V. Dolly, and Brother D.H. Sinanan. In the new district, and not surprising at all, there was also room for the irrepressible Brother J. Assing, who seemed to be in the center of nearly everything. All 6 lodges were well represented in the district, as we can see by the numbers shown in the chart, ranging from 7 to 3 members in the newly formed district. Now, brethren, my conspiracy theory. Having read this history and having heard several papers on it, which was basically a regurgitation of the facts, I felt that something was missing. So I decided to display the information in a different form that you can see here. Now, what we'll see is that after the first attempt in 1923 by Grand Lodge or Grand Secretary, there was a 30-year gap to 1953 until intervention by Grand Secretary or Grand Lodge. And this came basically after Brother Waterman's attempt. We can also see from the 4th attempt come forward is basically an interchange between Brother Waterman and Grand Secretary, Brother Waterman and Grand Secretary, where the first 4 attempts spanned 26 years at an average of 6.5 years between each attempt. But the next 3 attempts only spanned 7 years at an average of 2.33 years. So I asked myself, was this mere coincidence or was there some silent driving force? If we look at the information a little bit differently and we insert the 2 items with the asterisks in 1947 and 1949, we can see the first intervention by Brother Waterman with Grand Secretary. And immediately following that intervention in 1947, Brother Waterman, through Lodge Caribbean Light, made the first attempt. And then that was followed by Grand Secretary, and then Brother Waterman and Grand Secretary. What we could also note is that apart from the seventh and final attempt, which was successful, none of the previous 6 attempts ever mentioned the district superintendent. Prior to the 7th and final attempt, the only persons with whom a district superintendent was ever discussed or mentioned was Brother Waterman and Grant Secretary. And the final and 7th attempt was only a mere 3 months after the failed 6th attempt by Brother Waterman. And we have established before that Brother Waterman had a personal and direct line of communication to Grant Secretary. So I beg to ask the question, was Brother J.A. Waterman that silent driving force that led to the formation of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago? And that is a question that we may never be able to answer. So brethren, we now have a healthy, vibrant, and progressive district comprising of 13 lodges. And now share with you some of our key historical aspects of this district. Our genealogy shows that we had 3 hereditary provinces under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. We have 207 years of Scottish Freemasonry, starting in 1813 until our present day 2020. From the inception of Scottish Freemasonry in 1813 up until 1958, which was the year the district was formed, it was 145 years. 8 lodges were formed and 2 became dormant. And subsequent to the district being formed in 1958 to our current date in 2020, 62 years, 7 lodges have been formed and none have become dormant. Lodge United Brothers number 251 is the 2nd oldest Scottish lodge still in operation in the world today outside of Scotland. And Lodge United Brothers number 251, as far as we have been able to determine, is the only Scottish lodge in the world still using the symbolic voyages ritual for the first or entered apprentice degree. And in 1902, we did our first ever triple installation for 3 masters elect from Lodge United Brothers number 251, Lodge Eastern Star number 368, and Lodge Roslyn number 596. Brethren, we currently have 5 lodges in operation in Trinidad for 100 years or more, which is a really significant milestone and achievement for us. Lodge Aurelian number 1605, that was the first lodge erected and consecrated by the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago, is the only Scottish lodge we are aware of in the Caribbean that actually wears the apron on the outside of the jacket. Lodge Tobago Kilwilling, 1643, reintroduced Scottish Freemasonry to Tobago after an absence of 61 years. Lodge Felicity in 1681 was our first lodge erected and consecrated by a sitting Grand Master Mason. Lodge Hesperus, number 1738, is currently the only lodge in our district that uses tartan regalia, and it is the Lindsay. And Lodge St. Andrew, number 1794, reintroduced Scottish Freemasonry to Grenada after an absence of 96 years. Mainly 3 rituals are in use: the standard ritual, the modern ritual, and the Lewis. Brethren, one of the most endearing features that resulted from the formation of the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago, and one that has shaped the landscape of Freemasonry in Trinidad and Tobago, was a very close working relationship forged between the Scottish and English constitutions, pioneered by our 2nd District Grand Master, Brother Sir H.O.B. Wooding, and Right Worshipful Brother A.G. Emlyn, Grand Inspector and later District Grand Master of the English Constitution. This relationship has grown and flourished in strength over the years, supported by all subsequent District Grand Masters of both constitutions, and it continues to embody the principal tenets of Freemasonry to this very day. This spirit of cooperation has now been extended to Prince Hall lodges under the 8th Masonic District, Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. We have a high degree of intervisitation amongst Masons, and in particular, between the Scottish and English constitutions, where we have the opportunity to witness the different ritual workings done under the various constitutions. We're also very unique in the fact that at both Scottish and English installation ceremonies, all three constitutions actively participate in the ceremony. The District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago was changed to the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada in 2008. This was done 16 years after Lord St. Andrew, 1794, was formed in Grenada. And this was principally because of an issue of geographic jurisdiction versus Masonic jurisdiction, where the English District Grand Master for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, which would have included Grenada, who was known as the Baron of Ormiston, he advanced a claim that Lord St. Andrew, 1794, should naturally belong to their district geographically. To address this claim and to ensure that the brethren of Lord St. Andrew, 1794, felt fully integrated, a motion was passed and remitted to Grand Lodge to include and Grenada. And finally, on our key historic points and highlights, we had a historic regional District Grand Masters Conference held on Friday, the 13th of July, 2018 in Trinidad and Tobago with the following theme: Scottish Caribbean Masonry, forging a closer relationship. So brethren, we salute, we celebrate, and we give praise and thanks to the great architect of the universe for our 13 District Grand Masters, who have served us with integrity, fervency, and zeal, and upon whose shoulders we have built this amazing and wonderful fraternity of Scottish Freemasonry in Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. Brethren, as I close this evening, historical period and events that we have reviewed are a source of great pride and inspiration for me, and I hope for you as well, as Scottish Masons, all under the Grand Lodge of Scotland. We're also very fortunate that a review of our history serves up many valuable lessons and opportunities for education and learning, from which we as Masons must take cognizance of and extract these teachings. For it is only with patient and honest introspection that we can ensure that the unpleasant and unfortunate incidents of the past will not reoccur or be repeated today, nor in the future. It is a reality, brethren, and a fact of human existence that we can sometimes actually learn more from our errors and mistakes more than from our successes and triumphs. This 69-year wait and the saga of 6 failed attempts to form the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad and Tobago to replace the defunct province of Trinidad was mainly due to interlodge rivalries and a constant bickering and clashing among some very powerful and highly influential Masonic personalities, the end result of which was no agreement and no consensus for 69 years on how best to reconstruct the craft for betterment in Trinidad and Tobago. So now we learn, brethren, we need to look no further than our ritual, where we learn that Masonry will be stagnant and may even retard if we let our personal aspirations and the materialistic desires of man rule. However, when man finally learns to master the art and science of controlling his innate passions, by embracing the principles of moral truths and virtues, by practicing the principal tenets of the craft, by seeking that inner light, and by erecting that inner spiritual temple not made by hands, then each and every one of us as a Mason will make a daily advancement in our Masonic journey. And together as a fraternity, we will secure the future of our ancient and honorable order, which has existed from time immemorial. This is the bibliography, and I thank you, brethren.
Brother Sheldon, Taitt, thank you so much. I can assure you, you have certainly helped the audience here this evening make that daily advancement in their own Masonic knowledge. Sheldon, before I invite Brother John Belton, who's asked me permission to say a few words this evening, can I just once again thank you for what was a very interesting presentation, showing us that history of that part of the Caribbean that you come from. And I think I can safely say to you, Sheldon, that the majority of us here are Scotsmen, and you have just surpassed Jason Scotland in being the most famous man from Trinidad and Tobago. So, Brother John Belton, passing through that little bit of frivolity, can I ask you to unmute yourself and address the audience, please?
Brother Sheldon, thank you so much for coming and talking to Lodge Hope of Karachi. It's sad, but we forget, not only Scottish Masons, but English Masons, that there was a rich Masonic life in the Caribbean. It was one of the wealthiest parts of the world for reasons that we are now don't approve of course, but that was the case. And if we know more about it, then we would be far richer. And we've only covered the Scottish arguments, and I bet there were a lot going on the English side as well. And we tend to think of Masonic struggle as being the ancients versus the moderns, if you're in England, or perhaps the Grand Lodge of Scotland versus Mother Kilwinning, if you're in yes. Scotland. Yes. But in fact, it was more than that, because you had the English, the Irish, the Scotch, and you also had the Dutch and variously the French, and you've had Massachusetts and from Prince Hall and so on. So there's a whole new world out there, and you have not even talked about any other degree other than the 3 craft degrees. Although you've told me there's some exciting stuff to be down there. So when your first email arrived in my inbox, you were looking to see, is there someone else out there who's interested in all these things? And the answer from me certainly was yes. And I sent you various bits and pieces, and it's good to see you here at Lodge Hope being excited about what you do. I hope to see some of your stuff in writing. And when you've looked at the other thing, there's this case of a Royal Arch Lodge that had previously worked under a dispensation of the early Grand Encampment of Ireland, which is the only lodge outside Scotland to appear in the list in George Straffen's book. So there's a lot more to go at. So on behalf of all those who've been here, thank you very much. Do keep up the good work, and let's hear some more from you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, John, and I assure you I will take up that challenge.
Okay. Well, Sheldon, before you do, we've got some questions for you, and hopefully you will be able to answer them for our audience. The first question comes from Brother Ian Walsh. You made mention of brethren in the higher degrees, the 30th and the 33rd. But did they receive these degrees under the auspices of the Supreme Council for Scotland, or perhaps one of the American jurisdictions?
I would assume that because of the timing of it, it would have been under the American jurisdiction of Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania at that time.
Okay.
Now, when in 1813, and John was alluding to it, as soon as Lodge United Brothers was chartered by Grand Lodge of Scotland in 1814, they made an application to have the Templar encampment. Because of the history of the lodge, prior to joining Scotland in 1813, they were already doing many of the higher degrees, including the Rose Croix. So those degrees were actually being worked by that particular lodge in Trinidad prior to them being chartered by the Grand Lodge of Scotland.
Okay, thank you, Sheldon. A question from Robert Macaulay. Could you give a brief description of the symbolic voyages degrees?
Okay, well, I can give a brief history of it. So Lodge United Brothers, when they came to Trinidad, they were actually working 2 different rites under the Grand Orient of France. They were working the Rite de Français of 7 degrees, and they were working the Adon Hermite rite of 12 degrees. Now in 1785, the symbolic voyages was approved as one of the official rituals of the Grand Orient of France. So because of that heritage, when the lodge came to Trinidad, they continued practicing the symbolic voyages. Now, unfortunately, the symbolic voyages for the 3rd and 2nd degrees have been discontinued. They've actually been lost, but the 1st degree is still practiced. And very briefly, what I can say is that it involves trials of fire and water, but it is really a degree that is out of this world. It is totally and completely different to anything you may have heard of or seen. And I will invite any of the brethren who wish to at the next scheduled 1st degree of that lodge. We'll be happy to have the brethren come down and witness it firsthand. It's really something to see.
Okay, thank you, Sheldon. And I'm sure many of us would love to take up your kind offer of hospitality in the Caribbean, particularly if they're coming from Scotland at this time of year. But hopefully after COVID-19, we'll get there. A comment, I think a very fitting comment from David Brown, the Right Worshipful Master of Lodge 76. United brothers in the end, but a long time to get there. And I think that is very important that we are united.
Yes, we are.
Lots of plaudits for you, Sheldon. Truly excellent presentation and a deep daily advancement in my Masonic life. What we have got, Sheldon, we have got a couple of proxy masters from your district with us this evening. I did see at least one of them put it in the chat, James Hodge, proxy master of 251. As well, so he's here. And out of interest, you mentioned the Lindsay Tartan, Lodge Hope of Karachi's in the province of Fife and Kinross, and one of our lodges, Lodge Balcarres, 1240, who celebrate their 100th anniversary next year. They wear the Lindsay Tartan, and they come from a little village called Collinsborough along the Snook of Fife, and they're on Lindsay's estate.
Okay, nice to know.
So Brother Ian Gunning, thanks Brother Sheldon for a very interesting talk this evening. I was fortunate enough to have toured the Caribbean on a cruise in March this year. Lucky you, Ian, just before COVID this year, and thoroughly enjoyed my visit to many of the places that you mentioned. And I saw a few signs of masonry on my trip. Also, there had been a meeting in Barbados the day before we arrived there in mid-March, which was unfortunate, that I didn't get to see. Another 5-star lecture, well done. So I think that's, from Jim Rees, is there a Grand Lodge of Scotland Lodge in Grand Turk?
Grand Turk is quite north of us. I know when I visited Bahamas, they talk about Grand Turk and Caicos as part of the English district. So I haven't heard that in reference to Scottish. So I think currently there may be English lodges in Grand Turk.
Okay. That is correct, Sheldon. There is no Scottish lodge in Grand Turk.
Yeah.
The Brother Lloyd Barnett, past Deputy District Grand Master of the District Grand Lodge of Jamaica. I'm pleased to join by invitation from Brother Sheldon. Trinidad and us are very, very close in our working relationships. And we interchange ideas and have a grand time when we get a chance to. I'm very pleased to be a part of this presentation. Again, Sheldon, congratulations.
Lloyd, on behalf of everyone here over in Fife and Kinross, welcome to our little lodge and our lockdown lecture series, and please do not be a stranger. Sheldon, Brother Dale Hall says, great presentation. And he goes on to say, I had the honour of welcoming a deputation from the District Grand Lodge of Trinidad, Tobago and Grenada when he was Master of Lodge Friendship in Edinburgh. My wife has never forgiven me for not taking up the invitation to reciprocate the visit. I wonder why, Dale, I wonder why.
Well, Brother Dale, I am officially reissuing the invitation to come and visit us.
From David Park, Sheldon, it's interesting that Prince Hall Grand Lodge at one time had 4 lodges in your area. Are there still 4 lodges, and how well do you get on with them?
Okay, Prince Hall currently has three lodges. We are in amity. They do visit, but as I had put in the presentation, there seems to be more intervisitation between English and Scottish, but we are free to visit Prince Hall. They are free to visit us. And when they visit, we welcome them and we entertain them, just like our Scottish and English visitors. But there are currently only 3 Prince Hall lodges now. And they're under the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, 8th Masonic District.
Okay, another lovely comment. One love. I think that just sums up what
Most
your
definitely.
journey's
That is
been, Sheldon, over
That
the
is
last
Freemasonry.
100 odd years. So that is fantastic. And I think, Brennan, on that comment of one love, I will bring the questions and answers to an end. Once again, Sheldon, thank you so much on behalf of the Brennan and visitors here this evening to the Lodge Hope of Karachi. And we do hope that you continue joining us each week for that daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. Brennan, for next week, I don't actually know where we're going. We may be in Sweden or we may be in Germany. I'm just waiting for final confirmation. But what I can certainly guarantee, it won't be the sunshine of the Caribbean. It will be cold, wet and snowy maybe. But either or of the presentations, I'm just waiting for one to confirm his diary and the other one's happy to flip round one way or t'other with him, will happen next week. So with that, Brennan, I now invite you all to unmute, say your thank yous and your good evenings to Brother Sheldon Taitt. Thank you once again, sir. It's been very much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank
you
very much.
Thank you very much.
One love. Good night.
Thank you, brethren. One love.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Very
enjoyed that
interesting.
immensely.
Yeah,
Thank
well
you.
done, Sheldon. That was excellent. Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Really good.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Sheldon.
Thanks,
Very
brother.
good. Well, next week.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Sheldon. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well done,
Sheldon.
Sheldon.
Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you.
You're most welcome. My pleasure.
Sheldon, how's the cow?
Thank you very much, Brother Sheldon. And thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Gordon.
Thank you, Sheldon, for an interesting lecture. Greetings.
Thank you, Brother David. Good to see you.
Great to see you. Greetings, Gordon. How are
Hi,
you?
David. Yeah, good, thanks.
Greetings, brothers.
Bermuda, that's something
David.
like the Caribbean.
Good to see you and you, Bill. Brother Sheldon, how's the cow heel soup?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. The only thing that can top cow heel soup is oxtail soup.
That sounds like pea and ham to me, Brennan.
Yeah, chicken.
Aye.
I lived in Trinidad for 2 years.
You did?
Down in the refineries in San Fernando,
Okay, in the south.
in the south.
Yes.
Point
14.
14, that's it, yeah.
Point 14, yes. Point 14, yes. That's deep south.
Cow heel soup.
Okay, Brennan, I'm going to give you 5.
Brother Sheldon, thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Robert.
And
Thank you, David.
I'll put up a background for next week's visit
Okay.
away from the beach.
Okay, I will.
I'll give you 4, Brennan.
Thank you, Brother Sheldon.
Thank you, Brother Sheldon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, all.
3.
Right. Okay.
Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
2.
Good night, good night. Good night, Goldie.
Good night,
Stay on,
Brennan. Thank you all so much.